Today's show is brought to you by KegConnection.com. It's Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, and KegConnection.com is your deals HQ. Save big on homebrew kegs, brew kettles, all-grain brewing systems, mash tuns, hot liquor tanks, RO systems, 20% off all recipes, electric all-in-one all-grain brewing systems, kegerator kits, CM Becker faucets and disconnects at 25% off, free shipping for residents in the contiguous U.S., plus even more. Go to KegConnection.com, get these deals, and save 5% off your order when you use the promo code HHH.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question that you'd like discussed on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call them or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing, and today I'm joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer at KegConnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns, and also the man who we couldn't figure out his computer for a good half hour, Mr. Todd Burns. That was the alternative title I was working on for you today. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
I'm glad, Todd, that you were able to make it. You know, I thought we didn't.
When are you ever going to get my system where it works consistently?
I think that is the best interaction we could have had after spending 10 days together or 9 days together.
You seem like you were getting frustrated at me.
What makes you think that? That's weird.
There was some little tone in your voice a little bit. Yeah.
If only
I remember it several times from the trip.
if only you were in James' office and you could see the video feed. I realized as I was rolling my eyes and whatnot, like, oh yeah, I'm still coming through. There might be a way that he's going to see this. Technology is hard for people at certain ages, and I'll just leave it at that. It's
Yeah. Well, it was hard for me, and I don't think that I'm a complete dummy.
Oh, no, and that's the thing. Yeah, no, kidding aside.
James, he said certain age. I think he was referring to both of us.
Yeah, because we're almost the same age.
I'm so sorry, James. I didn't mean to throw. That was a double whammy because I forget. James, you look good for your age, man.
Great save. Man.
Yeah, great save. So, technology and all that being a bust sometimes is a great way for me to also say that we last week we didn't have an episode to go out last Friday because we were swamped. And busy, and I never sat us down to do the episode. I waited till we were in Prague to record something on the road, but we were in Germany and the Czech Republic all last week, and publishing was a little difficult. It was especially difficult when you don't make the content, and that's my fault. But I'll blame technology anyway. I actually brought the stuff. Surprisingly enough, last time I went to Germany, they gave me a lot of grief going through security, all the equipment that I brought. And so this trip, I was like, okay, I'm going to make it very minimal, very bare bones. And that seemed to work. I didn't get accosted even once in security. So that was refreshing.
And yet Todd did. So.
Yeah, Todd did. Yeah. Let's tell before we even touch over the small talk, very brief recap of our time in Germany and the Czech Republic. I love that. So long story short, our flight got delayed in Prague due to weather, I believe, is why.
Yeah, it was fairly cold. It was snowing that morning, so they had talked about maybe even needing to de-ice the plane, but the weather broke and the sun came out, and then it was just everybody was playing catch up because of the delays.
Exactly, and we were on the plane for right at an hour on the. Do they call that the tarmac? Right,
the tarmac. That's right.
And we were there. It was It wasn't that enjoyable, but it wasn't terrible. When I think I give a lot of reverence to the British because of their accent. Our pilot, his updates, I think if it came from an American pilot, I would have been a little bit more angry. But because he used
He was so nice about
he
it.
was so
Very nice.
there's a little bit of a problem. Pardon it. For this delightful afternoon, we're actually going to have to wait here for a little bit longer, just a tad bit, if you don't mind waiting for us. And an American pilot, I would have been like, "Oh, this idiot put us on the plane already." Blah blah blah. But with the British one,
The problem was a connection flight. I mean, we were really worried. We did not think we were going to make our connection. I almost didn't.
yeah, you almost didn't. And hey, Todd, real quick, could you turn your mic down just a little? It keeps it's peaking on me. We did not. We almost didn't make it. You specifically. So we get to London Heathrow, where you can't just land at your airport and then go to your connecting gate. You have to go through, because it's a different country. So I guess that makes sense. We
have to go through security again.
Exactly, a whole different security. So we get off our plane, and it is roughly they already started boarding when we got off our plane. They'd already started boarding our connecting flight from London Heathrow to Dallas Fort Worth. And so we know, okay, they board for, give or take half an hour tops. And so we know we have to get to our gate, which ends up being in the same terminal we are, but as far as you could possibly be.
All the way to the end.
All the way. So James and I and Todd take off, and Todd's actually leading it. Believe it or not, friends, if you can imagine this, Todd was the quickest of us at the beginning. He took off, gets over to security. James and I are not far behind.
I'd just like to mention that when we got to security, I have never heard you breathe as hard as when you came up behind me.
Behind you.
You were huffing, man.
I
think in better shape on the trip, and you must have drank yourself into worse shape.
I think you were hearing me breathe hard. I don't think that was Josh. That was me.
It was a collective echo, because I think I was telling James as we were getting to the gate after hold on. I won't jump ahead. We get to security. Todd's ahead of us. He gets flagged, I guess randomly. You do look suspicious, but randomly your bag got pulled to the queue of bags that they have to go through. I thought, oh God, if his got pulled, mine's going to get pulled because I have all those electronics in there. Right. But good for me. I don't know how old you'd say she was, James, because we went in the same line. I think that older lady was digging me. I think she let me through, even though she saw something maybe suspicious looking in my bag.
Maybe so, but we flew through security.
We really did. They were nice. I think it was my charm on that demographic. But anyway, we all know I do well with old ladies. And Todd, I was only half-heartedly kidding when I was like, I think I told you, Todd, like, we're not waiting for you, we're leaving. But you were actually like, no, don't wait for me. Y'all need to go.
Yeah, when I saw my bag go on the other side of the wall, and there were 3 bags in front of it, and then I realized that the guy helping me was the slowest person I have ever seen in my life. It took him, he took all the stuff. The guy, one of the people in front of me, he had left his liquids in his suitcase instead of taking them out. And the guy took every liquid bottle out, and he had like 30 of them. And then he started putting them back in, and he was like, okay, I'm going to put this one in, and then I'm going to put this one in. And I was like, I'm screwed. I'm missing the flight.
We thought you were.
Luckily, somebody jumped in front. Eventually, another guy showed up. It was much faster and let me out at the last minute. So, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, James and I, for whatever reason, it's not because I want to fly fancy. It's because I can't pack appropriately. I had taken a suit on this trip as well as a sport coat because I thought, I want to be versatile in case the moment. I never had a reason to wear a stupid sports coat, but anyway, I was wearing it while traveling because it wouldn't pack easy, and so it turns out sprinting in a sport coat is not that comfortable, and I was sweating balls by the time we got to our gate. James and I are not in the priority. Or not as priority boarding as Mr. Burns is. Mr. Burns was group number 2, which is only behind like women with suckling babies in the military. I think then it goes, military, women with babies still on the teeth, and then Todd Burns. I think that is the priority group for most flights that we're on.
It's getting thick in here.
And then, so James and I got on pretty easy in that boarding group, but Todd was nowhere to be found. And then, lo and behold, I found out that Todd was on the plane because he texted a picture of the menu from business class. And
I want to know which one.
To be fair, I wasn't gloating. I was just trying to get your help with my wine pairing with my dinner.
Yeah,
So.
that's how I found out, and I couldn't have been more angry that you made it on the plane. And then the funny thing, and I don't know if I'm using the word ironic appropriately here, the plane didn't take off for another 45 minutes because they ended up waiting for people on the connecting flight to get on the plane.
All that wasted energy.
No kidding. And I thought I would have slept better on the plane after running, but even after some beers and some whiskey drinks, I still didn't get that ready to sleep.
Oh, I can't sleep on a plane.
No, it wasn't. And we also had some drama in the plane around us. Some guy came on griping about something, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that was our adventurous flight or trip back home, and definitely was very adventurous. We did have...
that was a long story. Do we have any time left?
Yeah, shut up. We do. And real quick to recap, the BrauBeviale 2018 was last week. That's why we were in Germany, worked in the CMB booth. I had a blast. We have photos.
Enjoyed it.
Instagram.com/homebrew happy hour or Facebook.com/homebrew happy hour. You can see all the photos. Our German counterparts were so pleasant, great hosts. We went over to Prague, had a blast, ran into people from the same area, small world.
Todd's next door neighbor.
Next door neighbor. We got to have dinner with him. I never met his family, and so I flew all the way over to Europe just to meet his family. That was very pleasant. He's a brewer. He is about to be a pro brewer in regards to a brew pub, right? That's what you call their venture.
Brew pub, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, meaning they're going to have food and beer and whatnot. And he found his system.
Thanks, food and beer.
Yeah, food and beer. We had a lot of that. My body is reminding me that now that we're back in the States that I had a lot. When we got back, a highlight for me was I had to spend another day with you guys. Not the biggest deal. But James, your Czech Pils is cold crashing right now. You let me have a sample of it. Oh my God, is it delicious. You've done good, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's got a lot of clearing to do. It's pretty, the yeast I use is pretty powdery. So it's going to take a while for it to clear out, but hopefully it'll get better.
Josh, you were totally jet lagged and went immediately to bed. But I actually, last night, I tried his Czech dark lager after being to Czech and drinking them for several days. And I am telling you, that thing is spot on. It is so good, James.
Well, thank you.
It is. I mean, we could put that true to style right now. It was like I could close my eyes and imagine myself being in Prague when I tried it. So.
Do you guys remember what was the name of that brewery? Was it Cerny? What that made the one?
You know
I
what?
can't pronounce anything in Czech. I give up.
I forget. Well, whatever it was, I remember, Wes, when we were in Germany, and Wes went to Prague first, and I think he called or texted James and said, dude, your dark dark lager is spot on. And James, I know, did Wes text you or call you when he said that your Czech beer was spot on?
He texted me, as you know, we were on our way over there. And I think we were on the bus when he texted me, and he said that reiterated what Todd said about the brew, that it was pretty close to what he was brewing. So,
and it turns out it was, man. When we got there, and the first beers that we had at that bar, which was called The Local, which I'm assuming that because it was full, I didn't hear a lick of English spoken in that whole place besides from us. It didn't seem It did not seem very touristy, but
it wasn't local to me.
Yeah, it wasn't local to me. But it was very cheap. I appreciated that because I was in my drinking joy or stupor, depends on how you look at it. I was like, I'll cover the drinks, don't worry. And then I got the tab and it was like, 431 kroner. And I was like, oh no, I don't do math. Oh geez, how much did I just agree to? And it turns out it was like $23 or something. It wasn't that bad.
So James, what do you say when somebody? So we're gonna have a Czech dark lager and a Czech Pils on tap. So what do you say when somebody compliments your Czech beer? Dekui.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Y'all are so good at that, and I'm so bad at that.
You kidding me? Todd was.
I try to, use the words that you're using, and I stop myself and think you're going to sound like an idiot. And I ended up, thank you.
That's what I did too, though, because I kept, Jukui. Oh no, wait, crap. That's not it. Oh God.
Why does this guy keep saying jacuzzi every time we do something?
Yeah, jacuzzi is like Todd's story with Cheers and how you say bye in German, choose. But that's a whole different thing. I won't go down that rabbit trail. When people are listening to this, happy Thanksgiving, friends. Hope you have a great day. Hope you enjoyed it with family and good beer. The reason I bring this up is because like I mentioned in the ad bumper at the top of the show, Black Friday, Cyber Monday madness is going on at Care Connection and at Homebrew Supply. I won't kill you with an advertisement middle show. Just let you know the deals, the best deals of the year are going on right now. Homebrewsupply.com and careconnection.com. Go get you some. CM Becker is very proudly represented on both sites with some good discounts on faucets and disconnects. So go enjoy yourself with your family and have some fun online shopping tonight. Guys,
Please help us stay in the black by the end of the year. We'd really like to be in the black.
If you liked this show, please go spend your money. I got 2 questions for us today, and we have just amount of time to get them through. So let me start off with Roy, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Roy wrote, "What's up, Homebrew Happy Hour? I just found your show, and I love it. Thanks for the weekly entertainment. Have you ever thought about making this show more frequently? My question today is about moving from etch-strap brewing up to all grain. My problem is that I overthink everything and cannot decide if I want the ease of electric brewing," and he put ease in air quotes, if I want the ease of electric brewing and an all-in-one like the Grainfather, or if I want to go the more traditional, again, air quotes, route and use water coolers and kettles. I know one will save more money up front, but what are your thoughts about these options over time? I don't have space limitations, but I also don't have much of a budget. Cheers. Now we've touched on this a little bit, but I thought this was a good time because there are a lot of people listening to this show who are etch-strap brewers, and I know that because I get all the feedback from the show and all the questions that are submitted. And now is the time of year when people really consider moving up because of the kinds of deals that they can find locally and at their online retailers. So, Todd, I'm going to let you start if you don't mind, because this is right up your alley.
I do have an opinion on this. So we are actually launching a cooler, some different cooler kits for Black Friday. So it's a good timing on the question. And also we actually covered and compared some of the electric brewing systems. I think it was 2 episodes ago, Josh.
Yep. Right. Correct.
Okay. So this is what I would say. I never really brewed very much with coolers. I went over to people's homes and brewed with them on coolers, but I never had my own coolers. I kind of jumped right into the electric brewing, partially because I won one for free right when I was starting to get into the electric brewing. And I've done it with kettles before, of course, before either of those. I think it was a mistake. I think that I would have become a better brewer faster if I would have gone through that stage of the cooler brewing, because to me, you use the basics a lot more, and I think you learn a lot more by doing doing it on the coolers. So I would kind of recommend, and it's definitely very affordable. A couple $100 to $300, you can get into a pretty nice setup. Well, that's without the kettle, but anyway. I think it would be good to start with the coolers, and then once you've done that for a while, then think about upgrading and spending more money on the electric system. That's my opinion, but that's what I would say.
And James, we actually just published a video of you going over those electric all grain. You have a lot of experience with the more popular options, and he named the Grainfather, because that's like Grainfather is to all-in-one electric all grain brewing as Kleenex is to facial tissues.
It's the best system.
They're synonymous. Exactly, it's synonymous. People, and so he named the Grainfather. There's obviously more than those, but what do you think? Are you in agreement with Todd and like the traditional route being the coolers and starting there, or do you have a different take on it?
Well, we've always touted the fact that it's never been easier to get into all grain than the mash and boil. It's got a great price, but kind of like Todd, that's how I started. I had an old cooler laying around, and I happened to be in a homebrew supply store and was able to get the false bottom and the valve and all that. So that's how I started all grain. And it's a really cheap, fun way of learning to all grain brew. Plus, for me, I tested the new system out and we brewed a batch on it, and I forgot how much fun it is to use a cooler and do everything manually. Yeah. And you know, another thing, Todd, I don't know if you realized it, but it cut a whole hour off the brew time doing it with the cooler.
That's always nice.
So yeah, I would say if you're budget conscious and you want to just know the bare bones, learn the bare bones of all grain brewing, that is the only way to go. Definitely.
Yeah, and I want to ask, because I think it's going to be a follow-up people will give us. I was using air quotes a lot. And Roy uses the word traditional, and I think for whatever reason, that's what we all. If you've been in homebrewing for even 6 months, or if you've been online to any of the subreddits or Homebrew Talk or any of those, you know, you'll find the general consensus being that the most traditional way to all grain brew in 2018 is with a cooler type mash tun, or you can use a kettle, or you can use two coolers, one being your hot liquor tank, the other one being your mash tun. Why is that considered the traditional route? I mean, obviously, way back in the day, there were no Gatorade looking coolers that brewers are
but
using.
That was still, you know, the cooler. The good thing about a cooler is it'll maintain temp. So you don't, like back in the day, they would heat stones up and they would put that in the mash tun to keep, or they would do what's called where they heat a portion of the wort and introduce it back into the pot so that it step mashes, or decocts is what the word I'm looking for.
I couldn't think of the word either. Yeah. You use it all the time.
Yeah. So I would also, that's another good thing. It's real easy to do decoction mashing with a cooler setup.
What I like about the cooler setup, and you've covered it, and I'm just being redundant and using different words. It teaches you the intricacies. It makes you appreciate the brew day. That's what I'm getting to. It definitely, like that. My pop, who he listens to the show and he's listening to this. Spoiler alert, Dad, we're going to be all grain brewing in 2019. Yeah. And you know, and side note from that, the one thing that I know why he doesn't want to all grain is because your recipes, James, they're the only ones we've brewed. And,
that's great.
And with Extract, you don't have to worry about your numbers.
Right.
I mean, you know, the numbers that matter, at least. And so when all that hard work is done and we know we're just going to end up with a good beer, I think that is a safety blanket that's hard to leave. But we're going to be...
and a lot of people that I know, Clay, we've talked about him a lot. He started all grain brewing. And then he extract brews now, because he just told me it's a lot easier and he doesn't have time to waste for all that all the different steps.
He's got a fairly new child, new job where he works a lot of hours, and he just doesn't have time to do it. Yeah.
So, you know, from time to time I'll brew an extract batch. You know, it's all good and it's all fun. So
it is
whatever your preference is, but to start off all grain brewing with a cooler setup is a really cool way to start.
You ever ask Clay if it's your recipes he's brewing now that he's doing only all extract?
He will only. That's the funny thing about Clay is he would never think about going anywhere else but Keg Connection.
Yeah, I was gonna say
he's loyal to the core.
I like to make it awkward. I would totally make it awkward if he was like, "No, man, I've been actually going to this." And
he's got homebrew shops all around him. So.
He does, yeah. Hey, so to wrap up your question, Roy, I would say that you know, especially because you did mention your budget, the cooler option. If you're going to buy something this weekend specifically because of the deals that you're going to be finding, I would highly recommend you looking at the bundles available at kettconnection.com on the cooler setups with the mash tun and a hot liquor tank and all that, because that's going to be your best bang for your buck. You're going to really come to appreciate the process of all grain brewing. And then in the future, you know, we did a brew day, or y'all do plenty of brew days up there with the Grainfather, and we had a mash and boil brew day at my parents' house that was a bust from the regards of capturing it because the audio crapped out, so we never published that. But I could tell you that was also very enjoyable. But I appreciate the experience that you gain from the more traditional route being the cooler setup. Would y'all agree?
Absolutely. Total.
All right. So, Roy, thanks for thanks for submitting the question. Question number 2 came from Peter using the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com as well. Peter writes, I found your podcast on Stitcher and have never even considered making my own beer, but now that I have listened to a few of your episodes, I am considering it. What is some advice you would give to me? I don't have a favorite type of beer, and I also don't consider myself a beer snob. I don't mind a challenge, but I fear that if my first beer tastes terrible, that I'll probably stop brewing forever. Thanks, Peter. Peter, first, thank you for listening to the show. If you haven't listened to more than a few episodes, just know that I'm very dry, and I mean this with love. But I read what he was writing very dry. I found your podcast on Stitcher. I don't know why, Peter. Thanks for listening to the show. Not trying to make fun of you or throw you under the bus, but the question is just, if we made you want to brew, that makes me flattered. But I know it wasn't me. That's why. It had to have been James. So James, congratulations.
No, it's all of us. How about that?
Yeah, but he, this actually is, these are the kinds of people I love meeting because here's what I gather from the short information he gave us. He likes beer, but he doesn't have a particular type. He may not know, he may know that there's lagers and ales, but he might not know much more than that. Or he might know that he likes whatever, Shinerbach or whatever. I think if we could knock it out quick for him, I would say maybe James, Extract Brewing would be a great recommendation.
Sure, yeah.
And
absolutely.
like a Kolsch for his first recipe.
I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. I would suggest he try the True to Style Kolsch kit. It's simple. It has one hop addition. Just watch your temperatures fermenting. You don't want it fermenting warm. And I think you'll have good success with it, and I think you'll like it. For me, when I first started brewing beer, Todd and I talked about this earlier, my first batch was terrible. But for me, that didn't discourage me from ever brewing again. That, if anything, that encouraged me to brew better beer. And that's always the goal, is the next batch is going to be the best batch I ever do. So that's what drives me, and I'm sure that's what drives you, and that's what drives Todd is the relentless pursuit of perfection in homebrew.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people I think they don't screw up their first batch. A lot of people mess up the third or fourth batch because usually when you screw up a batch, it's because of sanitation.
Sure. Yep.
You've gotten some kind of a bug, but usually you're really careful that first batch and the second batch, and then you get to a point. At some point, you go, "Wow, I'm just being incredibly careful," and I haven't had any problems at all. And you start to get a little lax, and then boom, you get one that goes bad because you haven't sanitized correctly, and that only happens. That doesn't happen to you very much. The sanitary part of it, I think, is the most important thing for not completely screwing up a batch.
Absolutely. True. Story of my life. You're right. That's why I follow the instructions still with my dad to a T. That way I can't blame anybody but myself or my dad. I'll blame him because I let him do everything. And the good thing too about a brand new brewer is it's very likely that he has very minimal entry costs. If you have what is on the low end, James, a 20-quart pot? Like what is a
2.5 gallon pot. I think what, Todd, are those under $30?
Yeah, around somewhere between 30 and 40. We have a pot that you can use. It may be $34.95, in fact.
Yeah, and that's a stainless steel
going
pot.
off the top of my head, but yeah, it's not very expensive.
But I would, if somebody was going to ask me, what would be my suggestion on a pot, and I would always tell them, always go big.
Yeah,
go bigger than smaller, because someday you may want an all grain brew, and that 2.5 gallon won't work.
Absolutely,
it's just not big enough.
And I'm glad you said that, because that was another piece of advice I think we could give him is that you, like you said, if it's not that much more work. Like a lot of people start, and I remember not that long ago, 1 gallon kits being kind of a thing on the market where people were pushing them heavy. It's not that much more work. If that's actually literally not any more work for you to do a 5 gallon batch. I would have the plans on that being your standard, because I think you'll find as you brew more, 1 gallon goes pretty quick.
It does, especially if it's a tasty beer.
Yeah, and I don't just mean you. One of the joys of homebrewing, and I think 99% of people I've ever talked to who homebrew always want to share their beer. It's a pride thing for one. Well, for one, when we have a good beer, like when me and my dad, now that the beers have always turned out good. Again, buttering you up, James. It's your recipes. But we want family. Like my dad makes up reasons to host things. Oh, there's a UFC fight. Let's invite some people over. Or, holiday this or someone's birthday that. 1 gallon is not shareable. It's just not. No. You're going to want to share your beer. So like you said, James, if you have a pot that you can start brewing in now, fantastic. If you're going to spend money, I would say, get that 7 gallon on the low end pot, maybe. Because 5 gallon is doable and it is sustainable. Like, I don't know if my pop and I will ever want to do more than 5 gallon batches. If we do, we'll upgrade or upscale our equipment as need be. But I would definitely say, as a piece of advice that I would give to a brand new person, is plan on doing 5 gallon batches. And then I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, Todd, but I think Todd's would say, don't bottle, start kegging.
No. Who wants to bottle? I mean, come on.
I don't know. I mean, in all seriousness, I think if you're never brewed before in your life, you're probably not going to plop down the money to buy all the stuff you need to keg. I mean, I bottled in the beginning, not for very long, but I did bottle the first couple of batches, and I was not in this business. And I think it's interesting. It's kind of fun to bottle that first time. You're like, this is fun. We're doing this. But I mean, I actually did that when I was like, maybe underage. But
yeah,
I was pretty young the first time I bottled. By the time I started brewing again, I think I bottled 1 or 2 times, and I was like, I'm done. Let's keg now. So,
well, I know when I started homebrewing, you could still get those soda kegs. This was in around 2000, 2001. You could get them for nothing. So it was cheaper to get the kegs. I already had a kegerator set up because I like to keep a keg of beer in the shop. So all I really needed is hose, disconnects, and a keg.
You know how many people I get emails from that say they miss the days of $15 kegs?
They were 10 to 15. Yeah. I remember I bought a set of 4 for 20 one time.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. They were $5 a keg, and they were Cornelius kegs.
Wow.
Yeah. Never again. That's like people talking about Bitcoin from 8 years ago. Like, I remember when they were a penny.
In fact, the shipping was more money than what I paid for the kegs.
See, that's another thing people don't remember about the good old days of the internet is there was no free shipping or flat rate shipping. There was $50 shipping. And you were lucky if you got it in 10 days.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for doing the show today. That's a wrap up. I know right now, this is publishing on Black Friday, the day, or actually Thanksgiving evening, and I hope everyone had a good day. But we're recording this the day before, and in our line of work, this is the absolute most crazy, busy time of the entire year. Thank you to you guys listening who patron us and patron Todd at kegconnection.com or Homebrew Supply and James with CM Becker.
Absolutely,
we greatly appreciate y'all. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and doing the show with me.
Oh, definitely.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like to discuss on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call them in or text them by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, kettconnection.com, for supporting our podcast and the homebrewing community. Go to kettconnection.com, use the promo code HHH, and you'll receive 5% off your order. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.